All right, welcome back. Will, Mike, thanks for joining me today. I mean, I've been following you at Horsefly for a number of years now. Excited that you all are doing some great things in the space. You're pioneer, and if you would introduce yourselves and share a little bit about what you're going to be sharing today.
Yeah, I'm Will Crandle, founder and CEO. I've basically been solving problems in HR with data for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I'm Mike Baslett at Sandiford, and I manage our partnerships and go and talk to all of our lovely clients and prospects about how data is going to help them support what they do in their businesses.
All right. Well, again, thank you both for joining. And it sounds like you're joining us from Tennessee today. Is that right?
Tennessee.
Correct me if I'm wrong. As a Californian, there is an accent there that I'm picking up on. Where are you all joining us from today?
I'm from Liverpool. We're based in a little town outside of there called Widnes.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm just southwest London, Al. So.
All right, sounds good. Now, before we get into your slides and take a peek at the product, Will, can you just give a brief overview of why you got into this space? And as I've long shared, this is not an easy go. This you can make living an easy way, easier way.
To be honest, I was forced into this space. We had a company called Jobs to Word, which was an email marketing platform, and we were doing well. We'd secured loads of investment, and the business was going really well. And then on the 25th of May, 2018, GDPR come into play. So we said, okay, let's go and see what we can do, what else we can do. So we spoke to our customers throughout 2017, and the biggest use case was, as a recruiter, I'm seen as a sponge for hiring manager requests. So in the old days, recruiters were just given whatever skills, whatever job title, whatever salary, and they had no way of pushing back to the hiring managers. And our goal was to turn a recruiter into a strategic advisor to the business. And that was our first goal. Then we quickly moved into strategic workforce planning. That's our fastest growing area. And our most exciting area is business planning because of the massive amounts of cost avoidance we're achieving.
Yeah, absolutely can see that. And so, good for you for listening to your customers and innovating as you have. So without further ado, you want to, I understand you have some slides to share, and then you'll get into the product a little bit. So I'll get out of your way and join you as we wrap. That sound good?
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, I'll share my screen, Al, and I kind of feel free to ask some of the questions, because we've just been in the process of launching the second sort of version of Horsefly, and again, we'll touch on it with the beginning, that it's the biggest thing that with Horsefly is we've listened to what our customers have been saying that they want, need, and the type of information they can get. So I've run a search, and I'll jump back and sort of show you how I built that search up, because one of the big things that we believe in is a skills-based taxonomy, actually, and actually driving accurate results by looking at not just stereotypical job titles that may well have been biased to certain organisations, but actually what are the skills in the marketplace, and what is that going to tell us? So just for some high-level information of what we're looking at on the screen here, this is a search around data science, and I've put in a load of skills which I'm going to touch back on, but we get candidate numbers, average salary, well, mean average salary and a high average salary, and then we're also aggregating job adverts as well. So whilst we're aggregating from right the way across the social web, from a candidate perspective, we're also then trawling to get the job data, which is going to not just give the candidate supply, but also the demand for those candidates in the marketplace. One of the big things that we've just released, you'll see on my screen here, that I'm looking at sort of a range of different countries, which I could also do cities as well in one particular search. And this has become really quite apparent as the the growth of organisations. You could argue that perhaps the impact of COVID, that people can be based anywhere, and businesses now with multi locations want to be able to get insights on where might be the best place for talent when anywhere in the world, essentially. So that's what this is showing here. And the breakdown on the left-hand side is just the candidate numbers in all those different regions and salary changes as well. But one of the things that we talk about is supply and demand. We don't necessarily say this is going to be hard to fill, because I think that can be quite subjective. Your employer brand plays a big part of that. The demand within a certain area, and your salary that you offer. So there's a lot of things which are subjective in that sense. So what we tend to look at is what does a candidate per role ratio look like? So as an example, what we see on this right-hand side here is the blue bar represents the candidate numbers in each of those regions, and the black bar is essentially looking at how many candidates are there for every job that's being advertised out there. And that gives an indication of, and we talk about unconscious bias of lots of people easy to recruit. And we see that the US is quite well stocked in this particular search, but it's also incredibly high demand with 160,000 jobs. So these are all metrics around supporting better decision making. And again, driving from a gender perspective, so many organizations have got a massive focus on not just gender, but also ethnicity, which is something that Will might touch on shortly. It's something that we're really exploring, because we want to make sure that if we do something like that we're actually representing that particular group of people in the right way. But some of the things that we've moved into, so I talk about the likes of understanding your marketplace, and with Horsefly we can look at a range of different things, and I just want to touch on a couple here, because with some of the new things that we've done, you're able to start getting more and more insights. And I'll apologize in advance, I've had incredibly bad Wi-Fi today, and I know I had camera problems as well just before joining, so it's been one of those days. But if I wanted to look across all of these different locations and say, okay, where are these people actually working? And let's say actually I wanted to click into the US or China, for example, I could do that. But if I wanted to then say, okay, if I'm Google and I want to understand where I lose my talent to, so when we start talking about data and insights, what Horsefly and what we're trying to do is help organizations ask the right questions within their own businesses. So if Google are losing people to Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Yahoo, and so on, and these are the top firms that are losing this particular skill set to, then it allows for that more in-depth conversation within an organization to say, well, okay, why might that be? And actually we start linking to the likes of internal mobility and that strategic workforce planning. There's two aspects here which I think link nicely together. So one is where candidates are leaving my organization to go to. The other is actually looking backwards and saying, okay, where do we hire them from? And okay, lots of organizations know that they pull people from a certain firm and then they lose them to another firm. But if we put that picture together, actually it can be really interesting to understand why people might join from Microsoft but then leave to go back to Microsoft, and our Google becoming a certain sort of platform for people to develop. But talking about the whole workforce planning and actually an internal mobility, if you're building an internal mobility strategy, then when we start looking at job title analysis, and if I just take, I don't know, something like any of these job titles here, let's say data engineer, for example. So what I'm looking at here are what are the top job titles. But if I want to understand where my data engineers are progressing from within that role and what job do they move into, this then becomes really, really powerful. And again, when we talk about if we built an internal mobility or a strategic workforce plan based on job titles that you've decided on within your organization, then potentially that could be wrong, because actually that's not what the market is necessarily following. And I'm focusing on this a little bit because it's really interesting. And the job titles projection and what we're showing is something that is just literally, today kind of coming to sort of the forefront. We're just doing the final for areas of testing that with some of our new customers. But we can also look backwards and say, well, what were these people before, and what are the jobs that they move into? So from that career path and from that internal mobility piece around, can we upskill people within the organisation? Are we offering the right career path for these people? Is that why we're losing our data engineers to Microsoft, for example? And all of these, it just allows for those questions to be asked. And I think the more granular that we can be with data, and the accuracy of data, it becomes really, really important. And right down to what we do within Horsefly, which is a localized translation of our full taxonomy, which is over 550,000 different skills that we've indexed. And we heard a story just quite recently around actually Python developer in Indonesia, I believe, actually translates a snake charmer. So if we're not doing things in the right way, and that translation isn't happening, you can have perhaps a nasty shock when trying to find the right people if you're building analytics around that. Just to come back, and I'll do this in reverse, because to show then, so you see some of the insights that you can pull from within Horsefly. Actually, the way that you can search is quite powerful. So I've done, UK, US, China, and a range of other things, but I can specifically go and start looking at towns and cities within each of those regions. I could compare cities against countries, or I could build cities within each of these different regions, or I could even put a number of different cities within the UK. But then what becomes really interesting is how we're building out granular level search strings based upon skills. Okay, there is, I've put engineering data scientists just because we know that actually, those are typically quite popular job titles when running this search, but I can keep adding a range of different searches. So if I just took big data out, and you can see here, the machine learning aspect is saying, okay, if we're looking at these skills, these are some of the other skills that we could look to do. So there's an educational piece as well for perhaps, the range of people that we work with within our organisation spans from, TA teams right the way to strategic workforce planning to people that are making decisions on mergers and acquisitions. But if it's multifaceted and you're one day recruiting for data scientists and the next day you're being asked to find a finance manager, being able to have this information to ask those questions back to your hiring managers or senior leadership around, actually, are these skills something we'd consider because it could change the landscape of what we're looking for. And we've got a free search that you can run. So it's a bit like Google. So each box, and if I just discard that box here, these are all ors in one box, and then next box becomes an and. So if I started to do the same again and put the words developer, for example, this would be another and, or I could even exclude terms as well. So that's I didn't want it to be completely around sort of a product demo, but just it's information on that.
It's fantastic. I was just, as you're doing this, I'm just kind of pinching myself insofar as that, there was not too long ago where, I was reading reports from the Economics Intelligence Unit about, that had to be snail mailed to me to get some insight on what the talent was in a certain, country around the world. And, to be looking at this is, it's very impressive. And one of the questions I have is, there's I don't want to say argument, but discussion topic that the tools that you just shared, they're almost ahead of their time. They're driving the innovation. Like, the processes within organizations aren't mature enough to consume this insight and take appropriate action yet. Do you find that to be true? And are you coaching your prospects and customers up to, hey, this is the real way you can leverage the value out of these insights? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Imagine what it was like in 2018. I think one of the things that we can say is people have moved on. People are understanding the value of analytics. And again, teams like Toby's, Amazon, and Lyndon Lane's, Verizon. And they're full of data scientists, and they're really advanced, and they're building some amazing things even outside of the type of our analytics. But Yeah, I think it is ahead of its time, and we've had to invest very heavily in our CS team.
Mhm.
So our CS team actually go through a full onboarding, adoption, and training regime with every single one of our clients,
Hmm.
and it's probably one of our, two biggest USPs is that our customer success training and the granular level of our data. I'd say that they're the two most important things, Mike, and it's helped people use the systems.
Yeah, I think actually that, and Will's exactly right. There's a passion around actually upskilling the world, and all the people that we talk to around actually how does data, what impact does data and insights have, and we might start with one particular area that's been identified, and that's why data's been, perhaps a platform like Horsefly has been looking at being procured, but it slowly will move further into actually where did that data come from? I need it for this, and so actually, as Will said, the customer success aspect is not just onboarding and training, but it's a continual review of problems, goals, and outcomes, and so I think probably one of the biggest things, you're right, because the data has certainly, we've seen a big growth, but it's been something that I think has not been at the forefront of everyone's mind. So educating around actually why and how buying data is going to make an impact, because it's not just a case of going, oh, I'm reducing time to hire or cost per hire. And I think it was Toby actually that said that, you've got to start thinking about how you're saving millions for companies in terms of, rather than hundreds of thousands, because some global businesses spend hundreds of thousands on stationery.
Yeah.
And so actually, what is the meaningful impact to the organisation as opposed to just your function?
Yeah, it inspires me to recall a conversation I had with a people analytics leader here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and he said, "Al, I'm really only interested in spending my budget on two things: someone to build something for me that I can't do on my own, and data." So what I'm hearing with you all is that you're providing both, that you are aggregating data and you're providing something that is pre-built so you can actually, within an organization, take appropriate action. Is that a core to your value proposition? Did I play that back right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big thing that we're finding is that we're finding new value proposition items to add in all the time. And it's up to us as a community. I mean, Al, you do a great job with your team, is actually sharing them within the community. That's what we do between our customers. So if we find a way of helping one customer, we'll always try and replicate that across the customer base.
Right. Okay. I love it. And, we have a few more minutes. And as we do, I just want to touch on something that I believe is going to be critical if we're talking 2-3 years down the road. Obviously, we have the pandemic. Talent strategies have shifted. The idea that we're planning for remote work and right sizing the workforce and upskilling, that's all happening at obviously a very accelerated pace. So my question here is, given the pandemic, given all the shifts of the past 9-10 months, how does that affect this value proposition? Are you seeing an uptick in interest in your solution, or has it put everything on pause? Because obviously budgets are tight in most organizations right now. How are you affected by this?
Yeah, I mean, there's two main things. We've got organizations that are having to make really difficult decisions about the workforce. So they have to look at the workforce and on a granular skill, job title, location basis is assessing how difficult it would be to replace that person. So, you can't afford to lose certain skills and in certain locations. So that's been a big part of the COVID response. The second thing is internal mobility. So people are looking to develop the internal teams and see who they can move into different roles. So rather than just saying, okay, I need a data engineer, let's go and find a data engineer. People are looking, okay, what people move into data engineer and what are the skill gaps, tenure, and all those different factors that turn X into a data engineer, so looking internally at the data. And the only way to do that, it's no good looking at job title and saying, okay, well, what job titles move into data engineer? That's irrelevant, really, most of the time, because it's not. It's important to get the match of both the skills and the job titles, and then you can make really informed and accurate decisions about internal mobility. Mike, I don't know whether you want to touch anything.
Yeah, I think one of the things actually, I think the impact of the pandemic, Al, is actually probably driven and fast forwarded a lot of technology decisions, because we're talking about efficiencies and cost savings, and to do that, we use data in every walk of life to make better decisions. We research things, so why wouldn't we be doing that more? And as a business as usual within a HR, a recruitment, a TA space, or an M&A space, for example, to make better decisions. And one of the things that, I think where does it go? You're saying, how has it impacted us? We've really driven on, and credit to Will and the tech team in terms of what they've delivered. But, things like taking data out of Horsefly, because we understand that more and more businesses are wanting to pull data into their own Power BI dashboards, because they want unified data that they can present on internal mobility, on hiring metrics. So actually, if we can take some of that time by pulling that data out of Horsefly as is, which is a great tool and a great function, and it looks nice, but we think so anyway. But if you want that unified data into your own reports, then having something like that CSV functionality, whilst may seem a small thing, actually we've kind of had so many organisations asking for that this year, and it's something we're finally just delivering on as we literally enter the last few sort of working days for us this year. So.
Hey, good for you. Playing nice with others is always appreciated. As a former data wrangler and analyst, yeah, absolutely. So, as we start to wrap up, guys, I mean, I could talk to you all day, and because I'm interested in the geographical aspect of what we're talking about, the global nature, GDPR, all these things, topics that I'm sure we can pick up on later. But for now, how can people learn more about Horsefly? And similarly, maybe before answering that, what's next for you all?
Yeah, well, next for us is ethnicity on a granular level, and a focus on internal mobility. I think that they're the two things that we're going to focus on. We're also working on APIs into cross-platform systems, so even into sales systems and other teams that want to build stuff. Mike?
Yeah, and I think I've always spoken about this, Al, because we've taken a slower approach to building out some of the really difficult countries out there where data is sparse. So we've not gone out and rushed to have 50 or 100 countries that are available. We've really taken the time to build those out, and we've got a really good process in place with the team. And so for me, it's that continual global expansion into some of the countries that, we're being asked about, Peru and, Guatemala, and, really places where it's just difficult to mine and build good quality data. And the way that the team are continuing to expand on that is really exciting as well.
Well, I was hoping to see you too this past April there in London. Obviously, that didn't happen, and probably not going to happen this coming spring. However, I hope to see you all before too long, and I'm a fan of what you're doing. So really, really appreciate you all sharing today and being responsive. Before we sign off, just so our listeners have this wisdom, Will, who's your football club?
Obviously, Liverpool football, Liverpool FC.
Everton.
Okay.
Everton.
Okay. San Francisco 49ers for me. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, they're a wrong sport. All right, gentlemen. Hey, be well. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks, Al.
All right, be well. Bye-bye.